feel it's fine, they make a follow, I'm really that's who she do use me, really.
Everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Clustered Notes. We are happy to have you here, and of course, if you've been following, it's really great to have you join us. And I'm Toby, as you all know, and if you don't know, of course, you're getting to know. And I have Dara here, and Micah, as usual. And today we have a special guest. He's a PhD holder, and of course, today's topic will be very good. It will be the best person that could have the conversation with. We can have the conversation with. And today we have Dr. Adebayo Johnson with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So it's our pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
And he's a revered person to me. And of course, when it comes to the things of the spirit, spiritual things, to an extent, he was the Bible study coordinator during his set, if I'm right. Yeah. So which means that at least he has a level of understanding when it comes to the things of God. And where he works at the moment, he talks about policies and even changing some things and looking into some matters. And in that sense, he can also talk about some level of maybe government policies and some things, if we can put it that way. So today, not to waste your time, today we'll be talking about the effect of government and even God effect on people. So we can see, because I've seen situations whereby some people say, oh, it's all about God for me, irrespective of the government, and it gets to a point whereby they are stuck based on government rules. And some people just look at the government and they don't even see God, especially in different aspects. So today we are actually looking at who has more power, or if we are not necessarily putting it that way, can we say God power overrules the power of the government? Because I've even seen situations whereby maybe we want someone in a position and then someone else emerge, and then we say maybe that's what God wants, or that is how God wants it. So now I think we'll start with our guest so that at least he'll put some things to place. So can we say that the power of God is totally different when it comes to power play, if I can put it that way, okay, and maybe the government and the God's power is different, or there is a way we can link them together in things like that?
Thank you so much for having me once again. Now I'm going to start by trying to define the two aspects that we are trying to address, so we can find a meeting line and where does the power of God come to play when it comes to governmental system. Now, on a larger base, largely, maybe universally now, or in some country where democracy is the order of the government. Now, basically, by definition, democracy is government of the people, by the people, for the people. But you see, when it comes to the government of God, it is a monarchy system. It is government of the king, by the king, and for the king. Now, because it's all bogged down to the pleasure of the king. And so when we now begin to look at, okay, how does, the power, how does the government of God, the government of the king, affect, our contemporary governments? Is God still in government? Is he the one that still, give, power to the government that rule in the day? Now, for example, when you look at Isaiah 9, when you read from 6 to 7, it talks about unto us a child is given, unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given. It says, and the government will be upon his shoulder. So what we have now is we talk about a child that is born. A child that is born is talking about the woman nature of God. It was given birth by Mary. Now, but the son that was given, talk about the proclamation of his sonship when he was baptized. This is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. Now, but what we often don't pay attention to is that what he bears on his shoulder is government. Is government. And he now said, of the increase of his government, there shall be no end. And he said, Paul, when he was talking in Romans 13, he said, let every man be subject to governing authority. He said, because there is no authority except the one given by God. So, in other words, Now, whether the government of, for example, Canada is a believer or not, it is God that gives authority to the government. I don't know if you get that now.
Yes.
It's God that gives authority. So God still rules in the affairs of man. You know, like David was saying, he said, once has he spoken, twice have I heard that all power, not some power, all power, any power you want to think of, belong to God. So it is, God still gives power. Regardless of who is ruling today, God is aware of it. Now, it might be a case of the people choosing the leader they want, but nonetheless, God is still aware of the government in power. He could decide to remove him tomorrow, either by any means. He could choose death, he could choose anything, but it is still God that gives power to government.
Because I've seen situations, even in the worldly setting, especially looking at different countries, there are countries that do not believe in God.
Yeah.
And of course, if they will put someone in place, they put someone that doesn't believe in God.
Yes.
And they rule as if there is no God, irrespective.
Yeah.
And you see some countries, maybe they are Muslims, they put someone in line into power, and he rules based on that. And maybe Christian countries, irrespective of even the religion, they have a place. Now, looking at those ones now, in a way, they do not necessarily, and some of these leaders, they rule based on what they believe in.
Yeah.
And you see the effect of it. Because there have been people that banned even people worshiping God based on their position. So are we saying that God has that power in place, that he could see all that, but he has just decided to leave them to even put those restrictions in place? I don't know if that really makes sense.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to ask. So the question, if I get you very clearly, is that, okay, how do we explain a nation whereby, these people don't necessarily know God in the way we know him? Now, these people, they are not Christian, so to say. And now, but of course, they still have government in place. And sometimes they are even doing well. Sometimes they run their economy better than a nation that proclaim the name of the Lord, like that. Well, that's very true. Now the truth is this. Now the fact that people don't know God, does not necessarily mean God is not involved in their affairs. Now one thing is always very clear. Now it is what Peter said in Acts 10. He said, now I know that in every city, in every nation, God has people who are calling on him. Regardless of, whether the nation is, Muslim dominated, or maybe they are dominated by idol worshipping. It does not really necessarily matter. God still have some of those remnants that are there. Having said that, now, when you talk about, putting a government in power, for example, God don't come down from heaven to put government in power. You see, in the Bible days, in the Old Testament, there are instances where God specifically instructed prophets to go and enthrone a government. Now, because when you look at Old Testament, most times all of those Old Testament government system is monarchy system. So God enthroned and God also dethroned. But when you look at the case of Saul, God was talking about the people got the king they desire. It was the choice of the people. That's who they want. So, for example, God don't come down from heaven to vote. Is that correct? Now, it is the people in that system that we vote. So, if the people in that system are not, they don't believe in Jesus Christ, for example, now, basically, they will choose the person that they are tending towards, that they believe will protect their rights, that they believe in his ideology, because every politician will have to pitch his manifesto, just like an elevator pitch. Pitch his manifesto. So it now depends on, if I believe in what you are pitching, then I'll tend towards you. But every citizen vote based on who will protect my rights. who will protect my interests? Because governments, as it were, wield a whole lot of power over their citizen and over their country, and they determine the trajectory of their nation, whether you like it or not.
So I think this is where I will comment. So there's a friend I have that always gives this example, and he says that the church, and when we talk, for the context, when I'm saying the church, I'm not pinpointing it to one church. Yeah. I'm saying the church as a collective. Right. The church operates so spiritual that they believe they can exist outside of the realities of the government. And an example is Nigeria, is whereby people don't realize the level of power the government holds on their daily life. And he would always say that he would rank, to an extent, he would rank the government above God. And there are sometimes, yes, he would rank God above the government, because, and there are examples you can give whereby for an individual you can say, yes, God above everything, but as a collective, as a country, as a community, let me give an example of the election. You see people in the church praying for God, the right man should put in place. But there is a reality on ground that you have to make an effort to. You praying doesn't change that reality. An example is it's alleged that some people rigged the election. And some people had plans to rig the election. Some people prayed for the right person to be in place. Out of those people that prayed, how many people went out? So you see that even that praying, they're still falling back. Now there is someone has been elected that does not. Some people will say it's the Lord's doing. That's where the spirituality comes in. Is when the situation has now turned out the way it's supposed to.
It's the will of God.
It's the will of God.
Okay.
But then they forget that because of nobody can ask God, is this your will? That's all we can say is the will of God. But maybe one day when we go to heaven, I'll ask God, was this actually your will, or it was just our nonchalantness and things just played out this way? And you just said, you are being nonchalant. You now want me to perform miracle. But so that's one. But now, so Nigeria, the way it is operating now is there are a cascade of things happening back to back. Subsidy has been removed. This has been removed. That shows you. Now, there are people that are not affected by this. There are spiritual people that are not affected because the contract is coming, this is coming. But as a collective, you are all chopping the breakfast. As a collective, the breakfast is touching everyone. Mm-hmm. Even the person collecting contracts, he's increasing his budget because the breakfast is still touching him. Mm-hmm. Now, that is where, when they say government oversees the God, because the breakfast in reality will touch everyone. That breakfast, the example you gave me is offering in church would also reduce because there's a reality on ground. So when he says sometimes that the government has power, that's what he's talking of, the reality on ground. Now, yes, in the spiritual realm we can say, but there's also a reality, and that has always been my contention with the church. Is the church plays this isolation game. I won't saying it again is wrong, but they move in this isolation that, and this, I went to Covenant. Covenant plays that thing that there's a public holiday, statewide public holiday, but the bishop says no. So he's playing this. He's not held by the state, but there is a time, and because of his Ogun State, it's not really. It's Ogun State. Nobody really cares. Like, it's Ogun State. It's not. But if it was a military government and they declare something, there is a limit to what bishop would do, because forces can move. So it's a very, I don't know whether but that I believe that gives a good example as to that sometimes the church, and it's the same way I feel that the church needs to enter politics, but the church says they don't, and they are not meant to. But I remember the day we were going to church, and during governorship election, and the governor went to a church. I can't remember the church, and he stood outside there and he was shaking people. And I asked, why didn't the pastors not allow the governor into the church? And one of our colleagues was like, he cannot. And I was like, is the pastor playing ignorant to see that this is a political move? Because then, if you are saying he just came, a man that has never been to church, to your church, for the last 8 years of throughout his life, all of a sudden, there is something happening in the society. He comes to your church one day and you've given, I won't say you've given him usher duties. He has.
I don't think anybody gave him that duty. He assumed it.
He assumed it. So are you playing ignorant to you don't know why he assumed it? Or are you playing ignorant to that him coming to your church, you don't know there is a political statement being made? But then you say the church doesn't play politics.
I think, okay.
Okay, yeah.
Because I think I understand what you're saying, but even in that case, there is little or nothing the pastor could do. Because
I don't believe that. Let me
if
give
a politician is coming around, will you say, don't come to my church?
Yes. Why can't you? Give me a reason. No,
but the church is not
can't you?
meant. The church is not meant to be
The
like
church
that.
itself doesn't
what?
doesn't take people back, no matter
Exactly.
who.
So the church. So you people are saying that the
welcomes
church can say they are not into politics, but give that platform for a political agenda.
It's not about giving. They don't say they are giving their platform.
The
They
pastor
are-
has
they are
never
not-
said that
it's
you should
not
vote
about-
for this person.
No,
It's
it's
not
not about
giving
saying.
their
It's about. So wait.
platform.
So let me give an example. When a governor goes to a community he has never gone to before, do you read that as a political
That
statement?
is the governor's doing. He's
No,
doing his own PR.
Wait,
We cannot.
anybody can always go to that city. The next
Anybody is
person
not
too
the
can
governor.
Go. No, there is a
The
person
governor
this
is doing his own
Now,
PR. His
So
PR is
so
doing.
wait. So
and then
when people in election go around during election period start going to churches, what do you see it as?
it is
No, what do you
PR.
see?
It is PR.
What do you see it as?
It is
Of course,
PR.
it's PR.
That's what I'm saying.
It's
It is
PR.
PR.
So
Of course,
what? No,
but-
wait,
but
no,
what
I'm
I'm
saying
saying
is-
is-
no,
what
not
I'm
the same
saying
PR.
is
Do you see it as they are using that platform to make a political
they are
statement?
not necessarily
It's
using
PR,
the
they're
platform
using
because
to-
any one of the governorship aspirants can also go for the same event.
That's why I said I'm not saying.
I'm saying that it is
I'm not
PR.
saying.
And what I'm
no,
saying
see,
is that
I'm not
it's
saying
PR as in
governor. I'm
they are
saying
using
when
the-
political
They
candidates.
are using the church as the
As what?
As
A
a platform.
But
But
the church says they are not.
No, but the church
So
is
it's
not
it's
the
it's
one.
like the church
See,
wants to pick and
wait,
choose.
No, I said what's
The
your name?
church is
Micah,
not-
you are not getting it right. The church is not the one saying that come and use our.
No, they don't.
It's not. It's the
Exactly,
government that is doing his own
okay.
PR. They cannot say no. Don't like the church is not going to be like, oh, I know you are doing PR, so don't come and do PR here.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do.
No,
No,
they
it's
can't
not
do that.
possible.
Let me
It's
give
not
you an
like
example.
that.
Let me give you an example.
It's not like that.
Let me give you an example.
Because what if the church, what if the governor comes in, and then no pastor preaches something.
Nice.
And then the
I
governor
like that.
open
And let me
eyes.
give you an example. When Donald Trump was in power, there were people he invited to the White House. We all know. They did not go. Why? Because there is a political tactics to it.
And you're
That
not-
is
yeah.
that
You,
is
no,
not.
so you're now saying
Not going is different from
no,
when
it's
you-
the same. It's the same.
When you decline an invitation, it's different from you going to the church. No,
It's different.
It's different.
When LeBron team won the NBA when Trump was in office, normally they go to the White House. They did not go because they understood the climate and the narrative at that point.
But then they were
Them
invited
Them
one day.
going feeds a narrative. Them going is an image. Is an
I
image
understand
projected.
that.
You're
I understand what
think
you're
you're not
saying,
getting the
but
point.
then-
So-
now, the case will now be if Trump himself was to go to
The
maybe
game.
the game and they
And they
denied
win.
him entry.
They can't do
then
that.
That's it. But on a normal day, they should not deny him entry because he
Yeah.
has come to view the match. So that's
So are you
that's a
saying
different case.
you would allow someone into your platform knowing fully well the person wants to play a political move on your
They
platform?
can't. They don't have
No,
any
it's a
option.
yes
They
or
don't
no.
have
Let me-
choice.
It's a yes or no.
It's
It's a yes.
not a yes or no.
It's a
they
yes
don't
or
have
no.
choice. It
No.
is not a yes
It's
or
a yes
no.
or no.
Let
It
me-
is not.
Let me wait in here. Yeah, it's like, let me put it this way. in hospital, you have the staffs that work in the hospital, and you have people, that are sick that goes to the hospital. Basically, hospital is for everybody. That's how the church is.
No, we can't.
Now,
And this is why I don't. This is why I don't disagree, because
Wait,
we're playing these
Wait,
blankets.
Don't worry.
Now, hold on.
But then the
Let's
church
just
is
hear-
a blanket.
No, it's not.
It
Wait.
is.
Hold
It
on.
is.
Let's
And anybody can go to the church, regardless of who you are. It's like
Or your reason.
or your reason
purpose.
for coming. Now, nobody will stop you from entering the church. Number one, it is against the law of God. Number two, it's against the law of the land. That's the second thing. And so we need to understand that. And also, Bible also specifies that we should honor our leader. But I'm not going to go into that. But basically, anybody will be granted access to the church. Now, what you now do, what you're allowed to do, it depends on the leadership of the church. Now, you could go there to worship. You could go there to worship. You could go there to, now, for any reason that it might either be personal to you or, but it now depends on the leader of the church, what they make out of your visits. So, but that they won't allow you to come in, that's out of it completely. And that has nothing to do with the pastor trying to play politics.
Okay, so
Can I say something,
let me
Michael?
say
Wait,
something.
I want to say something with what you said previously. You gave the example of who won the game. Donald Trump invited them to the White House and they declined, right? It's not the same thing as a governor going to church. The only way to be the same.
No,
thing
I'm not
is
saying.
where
Don't streamline it to governor. I'm saying political aspirants.
Yes.
Political.
No,
The only way to be like that is if a political aspirant or whatever invites a pastor to their own place, and the pastor now says yes or now chooses to go. That is where it's different, because he's inviting the pastor, the church,
Let me dive.
So that's where it becomes
Let
different.
me
That's
go
where
lower.
it becomes.
So when
similar.
an aspirant goes to a church,
Okay.
for some reason, he's invited to the altar to give a speech. Yes or no?
No,
always.
it's
Not
not.
always.
It's the church. It's
Not
the
always.
leader. It's the
Majority
leader
of
that.
the time.
No,
No,
they
it's
don't
not
invite
a
him.
majority of the
majority.
time.
No,
It is
no,
not. It's
not
a
always.
leadership.
Now,
it's
we
a leader.
now it's like we're just picking and choosing.
No, not
Why
always.
not? We're telling you,
Not
it is
always.
No.
not. It is based on the leader, the person. If the person is want to do
Let me-
governor, or whether it's a man of God, it depends. It's
Let
not
me
always.
give you
It's not a majority.
some instances, Now, and please take note that even if for example somebody is a governor and they give him platform to speak to the people, it is not out of place.
How is it?
Hold on. It's not out of
Calm down.
place.
Calm down.
No, because
Wait,
sorry,
wait,
you said
calm
something.
down.
Platform. Listen to the word platform.
Now, when I say
maybe,
platform, now, for example, if a governor comes to your function,
Yes.
would you recognize him? Would you give him any recognition?
Are you asking me personally?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Your own function.
Personally,
Yeah.
it depends on where we align.
Okay, so
It's
if
as simple as that.
If you don't align with maybe his belief,
His views is there is no way I would give recognition.
All right.
Now
And-
that's my own personal.
Yeah. Actually, if he's the governor of your state, basically you have dishonored him.
Same
That's
same
the
energy.
truth. Now that's the truth. If the person is the governor of your state, basically what has happened is that you have dishonored him. Now, look, you need to understand that before people listen to your message as a preacher, you don't have to rubbish people before you tell them the truth. And the fact that a politician come to church and, just like they recognize people that come from different country, we have this person here, we have this person here, he also deserves that recognition that is present. Now, and the pastor will not change his message because the governor is in the church. he still preaches what he intends to preach.
I've never seen a pastor keep the same energy because I've seen.
No. I don't know how you judge, measure. I mean, the thermometer you use to measure.
No, because I've never seen a pastor keep the same energy.
Yeah, I don't know what you mean by
how many governors
energy.
have gone to?
No, you don't want to open that.
Yes, and I don't know how you measure that, but really, you don't. Governor or whoever is visiting a church does not determine what the pastor preaches.
For sure.
Now, and the fact that some minister may hear in terms of giving their nod to a politician does not make them less of God's servant. Now, you need to understand that they also have right to personal choice. Yes. The fact that they are a minister does not mean that they cannot also choose. This is whom, and this is whom I am tending towards. I don't know if you get.
But that contradicts because we've had a conversation on that. Why don't people come out and be open about who they say?
On. You see, it's for me. I love to strike a balance when I'm giving a narrative. I don't like to be one-sided. I like to strike a balance where where I have a personal opinion. I'll let you know that this is Tosia Johnson, not Tosia the Lord. Yeah. So, but you see, I have had a lot of argument around, a minister prophesying, about election like that, and some people say they should apologize, that their prophecy didn't come to pass, like that. Oh. And now, basically, for me, you see, there are different levels of prophecy. And a minister can make a declaration in terms of who he desire to win, who his desire is tending towards to win election. That does not make it prophecy. It is simply a declaration, just like you are praying for somebody. I don't know if you get. Now, let me finish.
The reason I want to ask is, why don't... So, I like what you said. Why doesn't the pastor make that clear?
Now, hold on. Now, if you don't allow me to finish, I'll lose touch of what I'm trying to say. So, now, I will answer your question. Okay. Don't worry. And, of course, it is now left to you whether to agree with me or not. It's a choice.
Yes. Continue your fight.
So, basically, there is nothing wrong with them declaring this is who we are, this is where we are going, like that. And, before, people used to talk about, church not being part of politics. Now they have entered problem because they are now part. They are now making their stand known openly. I did a bit of politics in school, and I have a systematic way of now, because I'm a fellowship leader, I have a systematic way of communicating the place I'm going to the people around me. Sure. I don't know if you get it now. And that does not have anything to do with me hearing from God or praying. It is simply, this is the path I'm tending towards. Basically, it might be based on my calculation of what is happening. I don't want these people again. These people have deceived me. These people have lied to us. They have cheated us. They have collected our levy, and they are not using it. Because you need to understand that God gave the sword to governments. He gave the key to the church. He gave the rod to parents. So when government is not using a sword, then it should be questioned, because the sword is meant for judgment and justice. I don't know if you get now. Yeah. So if I feel that the government of the day, for example, the case of Nigeria, is not using the sword to bring forth judgment and justice, then I can speak against that government, even as a preacher. I can feel that this party should not come up again. And
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are you going to be speaking based on your own personal opinion or based on the word of God, as in where it's coming from
it
God?
Depends
or are
on
you
where you want
that
to.
when you say you have the right to speak if the government is not being the sword, is your speaking based on your own, like, oh, it's me, Johnson, it's not God? Okay. Is that how
Are you talking of how he would address it?
Yes, if
it's from God, say it's from God. Yes. If it's my own personal opinion.
So yes, I'm not like
that's what I
asked. Is it going to be your own personal? Is it your personal opinion that the government is not working? This is what I believe, or is it based on
God
said that this is how this is the Bible's way of doing it? So how are you? how is it addressed?
How are you going to communicate
Okay,
it?
Yeah.
this is it. Where it is God, I would say it's God. But you see, pastors have people under them. They know their hardship. They have people that have been kidnapped. They have people that I'm sure it's no longer in news that
members are being
bishops are being kidnapped. One of my spiritual fathers was kidnapped, and the church had to pay 10 million ransom. Now, but I'm not going to go into that story. Now,
That's small now.
Sorry.
Now, tell me, if the leader of that church will want to speak about insecurity in Nigeria, if you were the leader, what would you say?
It's only from personal experience.
Yeah,
It's
from
not
personal
really like
experience.
personal.
And do you know that
it's not
even
from the Bible
in the
anymore, it's
scripture,
from personal.
you will hear Paul talking something like, I speak, I speak in talking about, I speak as Paul, indicating that this is not what he had directly from God. But we always say that our brother, he knows that he has the mind of God. You see, when you read Romans 13, it emphasizes, the role of government and the role of the people. You see, when things are beginning to, when your conscience begin to, bring things. For example, now, maybe government begin to do things that are not appealing to the conscience, to your conscience. You feel this is not the way to go. Now, they can either advise the government. Of course, they do. They advise the government, our bishop recently said, some of them will not even listen. Do you understand that? So, there is all of these politicians, including the one you feel the pastors are not supporting, don't be deceived. All of them go to them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Whether in the open or
they
in
all
the
go
secret.
to that one.
Do you understand now?
Yeah,
so they give them advice. It is now for them to take or not. But look, if your people are suffering, they also expect you to be a voice to them. That's one of the essence of leadership, to be a voice for your people. To look at the hardship in the land, to also, speak about it. And so I can speak for myself in terms of based on what my people are going to, based on the trajectory of the nation. Because government is controlling the future, not just of the citizen, but of the nation. Of course, we have a currency that we spend, which is grace. And I'm not going to agree with anybody on earth that government is more powerful than God. That's just, that's a joke, really. Because you are only talking about power when you are still alive. And the Bible said all power belongs to God. So, but there are times that the church have to speak out. You have seen even Baba speaking out at some point. They invite him to the platform some years back, and he talks about that government should listen to the cry of the people. They should listen to advice. So it means they are advising them, but they are not listening. And it's not just, and that's the case of Nigeria. It's not just about the preacher. Even economists are also speaking out. This government don't listen to advice. People like Soludo, for example, say this government, one of the problems they have the past government, is that they don't listen to advice. So nobody can play blindness to that. That's the truth. So if a pastor now stand and feel, okay, this is the direction we are going, this is the person I'm supporting, whether he say it indirectly or directly, it's a matter of individual thing. And that does not in any way make him a sinner it doesn't make him less of who he is. Most times we talk about, Christian preachers. I don't know if you are aware that Muslim clerics also do all of these things. Yeah. In fact, theirs is even more worst because sometimes they give those counsel in a way that is so detrimental.
Will lead to violence.
That will lead to violence. But you see, now, pastors stay on their pulpit and charge their members to go out and vote for a candidate of their choice. I didn't hear any pastor that mentioned a candidate. I didn't hear. Maybe there are some, but there are few. But you see, most of our leading fathers, they simply tell their member, because they have politicians in their church. They have politicians from different parties in their church. I go to Boko ministers and leadership retreats. I mean, almost every time when I was in Nigeria. The last time I went was 2015. There is what we call political meeting section, and it does not matter the party you belong to, whether you are PDP, APC. You do meeting together, and they talk about practical things about the issue of the nation. So we need Christians in every political party. And now, when our fathers are speaking out, people should be careful in the way they criticize them, in the way they talk about them. Of course, they are used to criticism, and that will not stop. But the truth is that when they did not speak, people complain that pastors should speak. When they speak, people complain. So
complaints
so
are
that's
never
the truth. So they are
ending.
never going to please anybody, because Paul said, if we seek to please men, then we should not be called the servant of God. And that's the truth.
So I don't know if we can round up with this particular question, because this is now what is baffling me. I feel now, since we know that God has this power and is involved in all these things, is there any action even from Christians? Because I know that this is, of course, the will of God.
Yes.
Irrespective of what happens. So I feel I can sit down in my house, watch the election updates or anything, and then they come with their own policies, and of course anybody emerge, and that's the reason why I started with, in a particular population setting, you have a level of maybe more populous persons, and this is a particular example. Even in Nigerian election, we know that a particular candidate did not have a lot of power in the north, because some of those villages do not even know him, and we just talk about, okay, maybe it's the will of God that so person won the election, or even it's not the will of God. But now, instead of working on those aspects, we continue to pray in our own place. And of course, it can happen to anybody, even we are not talking just
regardless of politics, just
politics,
life, your day-to-day life.
Yeah, should I now assume that since I know that all power belongs to God, and maybe anything that happens is the will of God, I can always just stay in the background and expect God to always work his thing out?
No, I think we used to see God as a magician, and he's not a magician. Look, numbers win votes. Yeah, that's the truth. Numbers win votes.
It's not miracles.
Not prayer.
Not miracles.
Yeah, prayer is very important now, because I give you an instance. When you look at the case of COVID, normally with the issue of COVID, I mean, we were in South Africa for 3 years, and we know how COVID affected the life of people massively, how people were dying in mass. Actually, if you look at the case of Nigeria, you should expect much casualty than you are seeing in developed country, for example, because we have zero social distance.
Yeah.
There is no rule of COVID that we did not break.
Even before
there is no one.
It was officially announced.
And I think it was Pastor Mensa Otabi that said he was following the statistic of COVID like he was doing PhD. You see, the fact that thing did not affect us like it affects US, Canada, and all of these developed countries, it cannot be explained by any human logic. It can't be explained. I'm telling you the truth. It can't be explained. Look, I know the damage COVID did to people's life. So when people say it's not real, I say you are joking. But you see, we know that something beyond this realm actually shielded us. We know that our nation will have been on its knee based on the prophecy of developed nation. Their prediction. I don't want to use the word prophecy. Their prediction. You see, they have predicted the political destiny of our nation several times, but they have failed. So prayer has its role. That we must not put prayer aside. It has its role, and we can't deny that. But look, prayer alone don't win election.
Prayer without works.
Yeah, it's like you are talking about faith without work.
I would now ask my next question, follow up to Toby's, and this is from, because we're all from Nigeria, is Nigeria getting to a point whereby it's more about action and less than prayer? Because
we need more action.
Not even Nigeria, Africa as a whole. Because I'm very conversant with people always. Me and Toby, we've had this debate as to, is US actually, are the West really bad, or everyone is just fighting for their own survival?
Okay.
And I look at it as it's a hierarchy system. Everyone is fighting for their own survival at the expense of the other. It's the same way the lion is the king of the jungle, because that is the hierarchy he plays. He must survive by eating those below him.
Yeah.
It is not evil. It is not. There is no way you can say it's evil. It is just the cycle of how the world works.
Okay.
So every country would fight for their own survival at the expense of another person. So at what point would we stop? I won't say, like, do we start saying more actions and less prayer?
Okay, no.
I won't say less prayer, more actions, but also still the same level of prayer, but more action.
Maybe.
Okay. Now let me put it this way, and I'm going to give you an example of the election of Kenya, and I'll tell you, some practical things, like that. So, but let me finish up this phase I'm trying to talk about. Basically, thank God for the last election that the church are becoming awake to our social responsibility, civic responsibility, that as a citizen, even though we are citizens of heaven, you must also know that we are in a local assembly, which is about we are living, we are in a local territory, and we must perform our civic rights. People should go out and vote. Look, if you are, I asked some young people that were praying on a platform, and I said, how many of you are going out to vote? And to my amazement, only 2% have their card. Of course, a lot of them have suffered to try to collect card, but they couldn't. And will you blame them? You ask them to register, they register. Should they still suffer to collect their card? You see, it's only in a year that you suffer for what you pay for. You want to buy for, you are going to pay, but you are going to suffer.
Even at the price they're telling you.
Yeah, you are going to suffer.
God.
So it's, I don't know if you get that now, but you see, now, I have disciples around me that already complain that their transport money is now over 100%. So much that there's nothing left in their salary. Somebody that is collecting 175,000 is now spending almost 100,000 on transport alone. So it's just
not about food, sir.
Not about food. So it's now done on everybody that, look, we must pray. Our prayer cannot reduce. It's like you are saying, if you are saying, let's reduce our prayer, say, God, you are doing too much in our affairs. Let's reduce your responsibility in our affairs. Let's take our life in our hand. That is still wrong. It will just be like God telling Samuel, they have not rejected you. It is me they have rejected. So we must pray, but we must also, the same energy we use in praying, we must also put it into what we do. You see, one of the ways you show that you have faith is by walking. You're not walking because you are depending on yourself. Is that I have faith. That's why I'm walking. Faith is actually push you into responsibility. It doesn't push you to becoming irresponsible. Now, when Kenya was about doing election, I'm on a global platform forum, of Christians, and they pray like that. So we have some Kenyans there. They were sending in prayer point that we should pray for. There are 3 candidates that we should pray for Rutos. That he should win because he's the only born again among them. They didn't even say Christian. They say he's born again. He said he's born again. And you see, as they are saying that, they are mobilizing, they are talking about voting, like that. And he just invited one of our colleagues that he sent on a platform. He sent the invite on a platform, like that, to be as an advisor, for a dinner, just to give the president an advice, like that. And so they're saying we should pray. And eventually he won. He won. And so imagine that you now have a Christian in government. There is a legislation they recently passed. The Supreme Court recently, this legislation on LGBTQ to make it legal in Kenya, like that. But the president has stand firm that it will not stand. The House have stand firm that it will not stand. That it will not stand. Not in their country. I don't know if you get that now. Yeah. So now the president is using his power to say, look, this ungodliness will not stand in this place. I mean, imagine if he's not the person that is there. He's just a socialist, a random person. I mean, that has passed, and you can't change it until maybe after 10 or 20 years. You can't review that again.
It will be more difficult.
It is more difficult. So this is what we are saying, and so to think that, you see, we have responsibility on the two sides. I mean, if I want to ask, I will have asked, okay, when we were in Nigeria, did you ever vote? No. That's another question. And so these are the things we are facing. But you see, we only keep getting better. And the more we speak about it, the more the church speak about it, the more it gets better. But we cannot expect change in a day. You see, change is a process. It takes time. People don't change overnight. It takes time. And let me tell you, the reason why people don't vote is that they have also lost belief in that system.
That's
you need to understand that. So pastors are doing a lot of work to encourage their member. Let me stop there.
So I think this is a very good place to stop. Do you have anything?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. The same energy you used to praise, the same energy she used to do the work.
Yeah.
That's what I got from
Yeah.
that.
And the church should get more involved in the dealings of the society.
So
that's something I'm always, Toby knows me on that one. Like, that's something.
Of course, we'll never stop saying that. And of course, there are lots of policies coming out these days. There are a lot of laws, especially even in the developed countries.
Yeah.
And it's affecting the believers.
And that's because those people have put their own people in those seats.
Position.
American church don't hide their involvement in politics.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't hide
They
it.
don't.
They are open about it. They will let you know the candidate they are supporting. When they supported Trump, they pray for him openly, and this is the person they are supporting.
And the media also pushes the narrative that
they don't hide the fact that they are involved.
They are trying to get the Christian.
They don't hide it because they felt that, look, you are infringing into our rights.
Right.
You see, in the name of protecting, in the name of inclusion, equity, diversity, you should not infringe on other people's rights.
Exactly.
I don't know if you get it now. So they felt that, look, they don't hide. And so it is not a new thing. The church has been in power in the past, even though, I don't want to go into that history now because I'll be saying something.
And of course, even the times.
Yes.
So I think it's actually a good place to stop. And one thing I've learned is, irrespective of even what you are doing or even the prayers, and we've mentioned this, do not stop praying. In fact, pray more. Irrespective of that, you need to also take action and also be involved in situations like this. Of course, this is the same energy. We know and we believe that all power belongs to God. And the only way you can even make His will be done on earth is also by taking part, as I've said, that faith does not bring us to the place of irresponsibility, but responsibilities. So I hope you've learned one or two things on this episode, and we hope you share, you comment, share your thoughts. Let's just hear what you have to say too, and also subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you and bye.
Bye.